Hey folks, Steve here with a very special unboxing video for you today. We'll be taking a look at the Vietnam 1965 to 1975 reprint from GMT Games. Now, if you're not familiar with this title, and I have to imagine that you probably are, but if you're not, Vietnam 65 to 75 is a classic game from the 80s and was originally published by uh, Victory Games. And this game, in terms of this new edition, is one of many sort of old classics being republished with different publishers, with the, I guess, support of the original designer, and all given in some cases some minor facelifting to clarify rules and that sort of thing. And this is one of those games. So this is originally designed by Nick Karp. This new edition has gone through a lot of love and care from Mitchell Land, Ralph Shelton, other folks that are invested in the game and wanted to do, the, I guess, best edition that could be created here. And I should say that if you're familiar with the original, this should be considered indeed a new edition. So besides just the components, there are minor refinements to various things. The rules are clarified. There's a couple of slight changes to how things work, but best as I can tell, these are very minor. So it's not a straight reprint of just, these were the rules. They actually, in some prettier art, they took the time to incorporate clarifications, errata, information to make this as best of a version of this game as is possible. Now, I'll say that this game is a game that is truly epic and large in scope. It takes a very long time to play. I'm not sure how soon we'll be able to see this played on the channel, but I would like to try to do some of it. The challenge, of course, is there's aspects that of this, like many Vietnam games, that makes it hard to play solitaire. So we'll deal with that. Let's take a quick look at the box here before we get ripping on the shrink. You can see, okay, well, it is 2022, but 2021 on the date. You have this very period appropriate picture artwork, or artwork derived from a picture. I think I'm not familiar with this original piece, so hard for me to say. The box is not quite a thin box. Like if I were to compare, just for example, like a Last 100 Yards, which is a standard thickness, a little bit thicker than that, but not as thick as, say, like a Triumph and Tragedy, and certainly not as thick as Pacific War, which will be a whole other video today. The back, you can see the map kind of zoomed out. You can also see a number of the counters that I don't know how I feel about the counter design. I mean, it clearly reminds me a lot of other counter designs, like Silver Bayonet, but it's just a little bit different, and I don't know how I feel about it yet. There's something about, like, there's a lot of empty space somehow, or maybe it's the font that's different to me. I don't know. It'll probably be fine in actual play. Here you can see the blurb. Get past all of that. Players, 2 players, 2 to 100 hours plus, because there are smaller scenarios that you can play. This is higher in complexity, low solitaire, as we could have guessed. Now, this is 3 map sheets. They're not mounted, or else this game would be even heavier than it already is, and even thicker box. So 3 map sheets, 3 standard size map sheets, 4 sheets of those counters, the 9/16, and 2 sheets of half-inch counters, rulebook, playbook, and a whole bunch of player aid cards, flow charts. They came up with the flow charts to aid play, a bunch of record sheets, all sorts of goodness. So let's get the shrink off of this guy and actually take a look. Now, Mitchell had done a advanced copy unboxing, which, if you want to see an unboxing from somebody very familiar with the game, then maybe get that a look. That was an advanced copy, so technically things could be different, but I don't think that they ultimately will be. And as I get this off here, straight up to the rules of play, clocking it at, well, let's see, not counting the back page, it's 43 pages, but some of that is an index. An index is very helpful for a big new game like this. You can see the table of contents there. The operational stuff is going to take up a lot of the rules, so just understanding how to even tell your units what to do and what missions they're on and how to move them appropriately. And then you get some into some of the more long-term campaign-specific rules, things like the South Vietnamese politics, morale, commitment. The paper is the standard GMT fare, where it's, mostly matte. There's a little bit of a smoothness to it, but it is 2-column format and color. So as we just kind of look through here, there's a lot of helpful boxes. There are some examples so that you can kind of understand how the rule is going to work. There's flavor pictures in here as well from the time period that kind of help set the atmosphere, I guess, for the game that you're playing. It's in the standard GMT rules format, so if you're a big fan of that, then that's going to connect really well. See these counters, so they definitely remind me of Silver Bayonet, just in terms of how they're laid out and designed, but some of that may be a carryover from the original design as well. So there's a lot here to absorb. Certainly, probably wanting to start with a smaller scenario to start with, rather than to jump into a 100-hour affair. I mean, this is, in terms of the length of time to play, we are talking like World in Flames-esque in terms of total commitment. So there's certainly a lot here. The playbook is going to have the example of play, which is going to be, I think, probably very useful, particularly for newcomers to this game. And then they have the scenarios. You can see they've added some, so Silver Bayonet was not in the original version of the game. So if you want to play Silver Bayonet in a very zoomed out sense, you can do that. That might be what I want to do, because I played the actual, the game from GMT Silver Bayonet enough that I would get a kick out of it. And you can see there's all these different scenarios, the grand campaign, how to use the record sheets, and then there's some designer notes that are, I think I've already read these. If there's a PDF version of this, I think I may have already read these, but I did enjoy it if I did read it. Maybe I read the original ones, I'm not sure. The setups in here call out the units. They use color coding to help for the factions and sub-factions. So some are going to be U.S. units, some are going to be ARVN, some of them will be Viet Cong or North Vietnamese Army. If you're colorblind, I don't know how much that will be an issue for you, but very generally a rock-solid item there. Now it looks like we're going to get into the map, and so rather than try to set up this whole thing, I'm just going to show you the example. So it is a paper map, so plexi as you can, and you can see that the hexes are numbered. You have different segmentations around areas like Quang Tin. I'm going to butcher any pronunciation, so please don't mind me. The country borders. You also have the road networks displayed here as well. There are tracks that are in the dead space sort of over here for general information. There's Ho Chi Minh Trail and air defense. Turn track is here as well. And then I think on the other maps we would see something similar where the other dead space, so to speak, has a lot of other bits here. You can see the population control, so determining who controls what, how many population points is that worth, that helps adjudicate victory. I'll say that the paper map feels like a different material. So it's got sort of a semi-glossy feel to it. I don't know if it truly is different material than what they usually use, but it feels different to me for some reason. So you can see this is more of the population control and seeing what these things relate back to on the map. Kind of skip past some of this stuff. So you can see very clear terrain. You know, if you're used to some of that map art, you can probably tell who helped do the map graphic design for all of this in terms of like the marshes and stuff, but that's all good. And then we get into the counters. So again, there's something about them that are just a little weird or off to me, and maybe it's the fact that the middle number is smaller font and up, like escalated, and almost like a superscript, but it's this is how the original counters were, so it's actually kind of on track there. Now, just giving a test push, these feel like they're going to pop out pretty easily. I don't have to try very hard to get them out, so this will probably be a breeze to punch. And then whether or not I round the corners, I don't know. The counters are brown core, the sort of brown interior, which means they're definitely the thicker cardboard. You see, this is the Viet Cong, which are hidden, right? We don't know what these are until we flip them, and then you can see on the opposite side they range in different capabilities. I think there's a political section marker, and I thought maybe some of these might have been dummy counters, but I don't know if that's actually in the game or not. We'll see what other counters there are. For the NVA, you can see the HQ markers, the HQ units, and their subordinate units, and using the NATO symbol colorization to help an organization of, this unit belongs to 320B, 324B, 325, etc. And then some independent regiments, it looks like. You see some more markers, so some game markers, similar things. We have the Arvin forces, likewise organized either by independent units or using color coding, so that's all very clear. You know what? I think I take back what I was saying. I said the counters look weird to me. I think the more I'm looking at them and getting used to them, the more I think I'm on board with it. I don't know what it is. It's like this in the back of my head. There's just something that felt weird, but everything looks good, and I don't see any issues with the die cut. So thank goodness, and good stuff. So that's a whole counter sheet almost for the Arvin. We have a whole counter sheet with US units. Again, the color coding. What's especially nice is that these are all relatively together on the counter sheet too. So if you're going to play a scenario and you're really just looking for, one logical set of units you could punch, and they're all going to be near each other. You would be surprised. Sometimes games don't do that, and it's a little harder to get everything that you need out. But there you go. Everything's looking good. And then this is the last of the 9/16 counters. So you start to see these are commander ratings and a few other markers, some things for sea power, but it's not going to be a huge part of the game. And then there's the two counter sheets that are of the much smaller counters. So these are to denote when operations are complete, if there's air mobilization used, a few other things to denote. These might be step losses. I have to look. I kind of forget because I was a little more well read up on this than I was before, but there's some markers here. There are patrol markers to show what units are at patrol. So these are going to be a little bit more of a pain in the butt to just go and punch. Probably not going to round all these guys, but certainly could maybe round these other ones. But the counters just in general look high quality. Obviously, I think this is a game that they really wanted to do a good job in terms of production value on. We have some combat results tables. Probably nothing too surprising here, just in terms of what they have. You can see ground combat strength plus enemy support. I have to go look. I assume it's firepower based, but it's kind of hard for me to tell. Looks like combat ratio does have a modifier to the above die rolls, or to some degree. I've not really played this game fully. On the back are terrain effects. You can see different movement for foot and mechanized, as well as combat modifiers, so all very handy Easy things to follow, some notation on air mobile units. Um, Looks like there's a couple copies of those for each player, or a copy each for the player. This player aid sheet is a fold-out one, so you can see there's some charts for naval air defense, blockade charts, morale charts. So there's a lot of ways that morale can shift. Lots of things to look at here. Unit costs. You spend or use commitment, raise commitment to bring in more units, but there are negatives for doing that. There's pacification. That's how you want to bring the country into a stable state as the allies. A second copy for the second player. Here we get into the flowcharts. Now, if you're a guy like me who deals with Visio and flowcharts in their day-to-day, you're like, oh, okay, well, I can jive with this. Let's see, begin operation. Yes, no, blah, blah, get to where you need to be and what you're trying to cover. So definitely worth probably looking at these and even reviewing these a lot. Like, okay, I want to do a search and destroy. Well, how do I do that? And just working your way through the process will probably help a lot, because it's otherwise going to feel very complicated. You can do a security action, likewise a set of applying casualties. So yes, the fact that a game is made better by having flowcharts, you could be maybe turned off by that. I think ultimately, you start to learn the processes, and then you don't really need the chart as much anymore. There's a sequence of play. Relatively straightforward stuff. Just takes a while to get through everything that you want to do. The seasonal interphase, where you do a lot of the sort of campaign level stuff like strategic war, politics, recruitment. Here we have the record sheets. Now this is given, it's given in this format, and yes, there's two of them. Do not write on these. These are meant to be photocopied. Do not write on these. You get two of them. One is for the NLF, one is for SBN, and they're only single side. So make copies when you're going to play the game. Do not write on these in pen. There's likewise a alternate population control sheet if you like the spreadsheet format more. Again, probably want to photocopy these if you're going to use them like that. And there's a few holding box sheets. On the what's interesting on the back is a general record track, but you have one of those on the map. So I guess if you're playing a smaller scenario and you don't need these, you can use this instead of getting all the maps out. Or if you're playing with all the maps, you're playing a big game, you probably need holding boxes. So that's probably still well designed appropriately. There's a US record sheet, likewise photocopy that guy. And then the NLF holding boxes doesn't have anything on the back, so presumably if you're using this, you're good to go. And finally, you get red and a green die, very nice. And the box insert, which may or may not survive after all the counters are punched, and we need to find room to stuff everything back in this box. I'm not sure. That'll be an interesting test. Will everything fit back into the box, assuming you have punched all the counters and tried to organize them? I find that to be the great challenge of many games, is whether or not that's going to be true. You would much rather everything be able to just fit right back into the box, and oddly enough, many counter trays actually take up more space than if you put them all in baggies and just compressed the air and pushed them in as much as you could. So it'll be interesting to see how that rolls. So yeah, there you go, guys. The unboxing of the retail version, the shipped version of Vietnam 1965 to 1975. A lot here to check out, a long game to play. Would like to maybe try the Silver Bayonet scenario once I've gotten the rules figured out and do that on camera just for fun. I don't know when I'm ever going to play the full campaign game, but I certainly want to get this on the table. I still would like to compare this with the Compass Games Vietnam Rumor of War, which is ultimately just a very different game system and will play much shorter or much faster than this, just to see how, Is one less filling but still okay, or do you really go for the full in-depth product here? So in terms of production value, this is looking really good. We'll have to see how all it plays together. A game from the 80s played in the 2020s. We'll see how it goes. So hopefully this was valuable to you if you were looking to get the game. You just wanted to see what the components look like. Obviously, this is relatively quick in terms of just looking at everything. This is a longer video, 20 minutes long, geez. But not, this video would be even longer if I were really digging my way through each and every thing and doing it in even more detail. So hopefully this gives you an idea of what the product entails. I think it's worthwhile. If you've not ever played the original, then here's your opportunity. If you play the original and you want to get a fixed up version, then we truly live in the golden age of reprints and republished games, because this is one of many in the same vein, and I'm really happy about that we have the opportunity to get new editions of some classics. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care. Keep on gaming.